Hello, and welcome to our second week on the theme of gratitude for Awakened. This week's centering scripture, Paul is writing to the church in Philippi, and he lets them know that he has known times of great plenty and also times where he didn't have much. But it was his faith that carried him through. And he ends with these wonderful words that we all know: I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He's saying that it is through his faith that he is able to make it through the good times and the bad. And Paul certainly knew both. There were times in his life and ministry where he was popular and times where he wasn't, times when he was well supported and times where he wasn't. And it is his commitment to the faith that keeps him going. I imagine that all of us have experienced both good times and bad. There have been times when we've had enough and times where we haven't. And it can be hard sometimes to be faithful in the midst of all of it, especially if it's a lean time, especially if we're really facing struggles. That sometimes it can be hard to experience God's presence in the midst of all of that. But one thing that I really appreciate about Paul is that, zealous as he was, he always stayed committed to his faith, and it grounded him in ways that seemed to be able to sustain him, especially in the midst of suffering. And I think that is one thing that we can learn from Paul, is that our faith can be a source of wonderful support for us, because it can help us remember that we're not alone, that God is with us, and that when Christian community is operating like it should, and I get that it often doesn't, but when it's operating as it should, that God is made manifest in the midst of community, and we take care of one another. I think focusing on gratitude is one of the ways that we can get through even the hardest times. When we focus on what is important, just like Paul did when he focused on his faith, when we focus on what is important, it can carry us through. It can give us something to look at, to look beyond our suffering, to focus on other than our suffering. And we need that in our lives, because otherwise sometimes the hard stuff can feel overwhelming. That's why in this section, focusing on gratitude, we're focusing on the spiritual practice of giving thanks. Giving thanks. So I've encouraged you to keep a gratitude journal, and perhaps some of you are doing that. As I've told you, I keep a gratitude journal on my phone, and so as good things happen, I put them in there so that I remember, and then if it's a time when I'm feeling a little down, looking at that gratitude journal can be very helpful for me. So I'd encourage you maybe to do that on your phone, or if you want to write just a list of things, or if you want to actually journal about good things that are happening in your lives, that's a spiritual practice that can be incredibly life-giving. Or I've also encouraged you to think about perhaps doing a gratitude jar. Placing a jar somewhere where you can see it on a regular basis, and keeping slips of paper around so that when something good happens, you can write that down. This week, I would like to encourage you to focus your gratitude specifically on how it relates to your interaction with other people. Are there interactions that you've had this week that you are grateful for? Are there relationships that you are particularly grateful for? Write those things down. Was there something kind that a stranger did for you, or something even kind that you did for a stranger that you feel good about? Write those things down so that you don't forget. And perhaps those even help you to focus on places that you need to nurture a little bit more, relationships that you need to nurture a little bit more, ones that you have found life-giving and that have been fulfilling, but maybe you haven't had the time or energy to maintain, but maybe it's time to put a little bit more time and energy into. This week, focus on gratitude as it relates to your relationships with others. And may those relationships be life-giving for you. And may that carry you through even the most difficult times. May it be so.